Here's what we're talking about today on Daily Blast Live.
A shooting rampage at an LGBTQ nightclub leaves 5 people dead before brave patrons took action to stop the gunman. Is Nancy Pelosi right to blame MAGA Republicans for this tragedy? Then, our interview with Academy Award winner Laura Dern.
We have to have a collective conversation.
Taylor Swift dominates the American Music Awards, while Kelly Rowland defends Chris Brown as he gets booed.
Excuse me, chill out.
Plus, the touching tribute to Olivia Newton-John. And daytime talk show legend Montel Williams joins our panel live.
Oh my gosh.
Get real.
No.
Y'all,
Just stop.
this is a sham.
It's finally here. Drum roll.
Welcome to DBL. Well, we have a very special guest on our panel. His talk show ran for 17 years and it single-handedly changed the landscape of daytime TV. We're talking about the Montel Williams Show.
Yeah.
That's his show. That's not, yes. But I want people to know how long it ran because it affected all of us. 1991 to 2008. Montel Williams. Everybody.
Yes.
Thank you. So good being here.
We are honored to have you here. And in fact, you know, today is a really tough day to talk about the mass shooting. I know that you spent some time in Colorado. When was this and how long did you spend time here?
I was in Colorado. I had actually had an apartment here from 1988 to 1991 before my show started. And I literally was in this studio, in KCNC studio. I did a lot of work here in television. I won my first Emmy here in this.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Before I was even a member of Natus. Crazy.
That is crazy. My wife, I was talking to her before this, and it's her birthday. I want to say happy birthday to my wife. Yeah, thank you, Montel. And she, well, maybe not after you hear this story, because I'm like, Montel Williams is going to be here, and she's like, oh my God, and proceeded to sing a Montel Jordan song. And I go, no, Montel Williams. And she goes, oh, okay, well, have fun. I got to go.
Way to welcome our guest.
I know, huh?
I'm going to piggyback on that and say that all morning I've just heard my big mama's voice, who has passed away, you know, almost 20 years ago, because she would say every day, "It's Montel Williams time. It's Montel Williams time." And we get ready and like watch your show. So it's such an honor.
Oh,
yeah, it is an honor.
You know, for me, it was an honor because back then, you know, there was a lot of talk going on, and some of the shows decided to be a little bit more salacious than we went down that path. And I was so happy that so many parents thought it was okay to let their kids come home from school and watch me.
Yep. No.
So now, the people who walk up to me all the time, I could be in a mall, I could be eating dinner. You know, I watched you. My mom would only let me watch your show. And I'd be like, well, thanks a lot.
It's the truth.
Yeah, for sure. No,
I know 12-year-old Sam was always about Montel Williams. Woo!
Yeah.
Okay, and now here you are.
There was something under there, too.
What?
There was a story that you was going to share on air.
Yeah. All right, so we are going to switch gears here. We're glad to have you on the panel and get your opinion on this. So we are unfortunately starting today to talk about yet another mass shooting here in America, and at least the 600th so far this year. This one happened just about 60 miles from where we are right now at an LGBTQ plus nightclub in Colorado Springs called Club Q. In fact, a lot of our employees have hung out at Club Q, okay? 5 people were killed and another 25 were hurt after a gunman entered the club and began firing with an AR-15 style long gun. A 22-year-old suspect was arrested, and police say he was stopped by people in the bar who put their own lives at risk to take him down. He's been charged with murder and hate crimes, and it is our policy here on the show. We do not name the victim or the gunman. We do not show any pictures of them, but we are now learning he has been arrested. He had also been arrested last year in connection with a bomb threat that led to a standoff. No formal charges were filed. So what do you all think of the attack and the fact that the shooter was stopped at the bar by some of the patrons there.
I mean, I think sadly it just shows how much we've adjusted to mass shootings. I mean, you think about Pulse, Montel, Pulse nightclub was, 2016, and the cops waited outside. It was like 4 or 5 hours where he just had his run of the place. This year, I guess if we're looking for a silver lining, it seems like it was a 4-minute situation from when he entered to when he was taken down. But is that a good thing, Mr. Williams?
I mean, I'm listening to what Sam said when she introduced the story. 600th this year. And we're all going to be aghast. We're all going to be upset today. Everybody's going to talk about how, oh, my prayers go out to the victim. Stop the stupid. It is time for America to recognize the fact that, number one, we're never getting rid of guns. So stop thinking about it, though we might. We're not. There are more guns in America than there are people. So therefore, guns are not going anywhere. Maybe what we should start doing is figuring out a better way to educate from childhood up. Let's start talking about the fact that life is sacred again. Let's start talking about the fact that you don't end an argument by going and get a gun, something that's fatal. And if you've got a problem, they caught the guy a year ago kidnapping his mother.
I know.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad you have passion. Yes.
Well,
I'm sorry.
To his point, Colorado has the lowest amount of people using that red flag law. Okay? You see Florida. People love their guns in Florida, yet they are using the red flag laws, and people are having their guns taken away left and right by judges. That's not happening here, Erica. So a follow-up question to you, Mr. Montel, and then Erica and Jeff, please chime in. But you mentioned too many guns here in America. Let's not argue about creating legislation to remove guns. What about AR-15s, though?
I would like to say let's take out an AR-15. Okay, so you take out the AR-15, then what do? You go after 30-06, then you go after. But remember, any gun that has a clip with more than 5 rounds in it is a semi-automatic. You pull the trigger each time, gun goes off. So are we going to try to go after every individual nomenclature? I'm a guy who's got educated.
Yeah.
22 years I spent in the military, that's what my career spanned. 4 years ago, I got rid of 17 guns. What do I have 17 guns for? Really, honestly, why? What, am I going to go hunting? No. I was going out shooting cans and things. I stopped doing that 10 years ago, but I still had 17 guns. I needed to get rid of them. I wish more people in this country would recognize the fact that what we think is one of our greatest rights will be what will be the downfall of this country.
I just hate that there are laws in place to prevent something like this, and this could have been prevented.
Yes.
This definitely could have been prevented, but people want to push back against this. And instead of the government stopping these shootings, like you said, we have to repeat, over 600 this year. And the government's doing nothing. So now the individuals of where these things take place are now having to step in and be their own heroes instead of our heroes being the heroes.
But Jeff, let me tell you one quick thing. My wife works, she's a flight attendant, and I'm finding myself now, before we part ways with each other, like she's flying this tonight and she comes home tomorrow, we had a 10-minute conversation before she walked out the door with me saying to her, baby, pay attention to everywhere around you. When you're walking, leave your wedding ring home. And I stopped myself last night and I said, how dare I have to have a 10-minute conversation with my wife about just being safe in life?
Yeah.
That's Erica. Erica says that to all of us every day. You are a survivalist.
I mean, in a very loose sense, I'm very aware. Like, I'm just someone who's always aware of my surroundings. I grew up that way. My uncles, the men in and the women in my life were very much like, you need to pay attention not only to your surroundings, but the people that you are allowing within your circle.
But this is at a grocery store. You can't go to church.
Yeah.
You can't go to
anywhere.
your child's school.
Right.
You got to pay. Is this how we want to live as a country?
And we're going to continue the conversation. Go to our YouTube. We're going to continue this conversation that we all wish we did not have to have. Coming up on DBL, Montel is going to stick around the entire show. And up next, he's telling us all about how he got his start in daytime TV. Then our new interview with Academy Award winner Laura Dern. She's talking about her new movie she stars in with Hugh Jackman. Go to our YouTube, continuing the conversation.
Closed captioning provided by
There's going to be a lot of internet chatter. That's where the red flag goes up.
We are never going to agree on this. You know why I don't call in sick? Camera hog.
Tell me I need to do something, I'm going to do the exact opposite.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Oh, no,
and I don't deny it.
Good stuff, Montel, as always. Yeah, good stuff. It's just we have these conversations constantly about gun laws and responsible gun owners, right? And it's not that you get the pushback from people saying, don't take away my guns, and nobody wants to take away anybody's guns. That's where we kind of don't meet in the middle. But you as a responsible gun owner chose to get rid of your guns.
I chose to get rid of mine because it's unnecessary. I got police officers, that's what their job is to do. If I held my gun and I claim that I'm a Second Amendment believer, then I'm supposedly owning a gun because I want to be a part of a militia in case we need one. I don't need to do that. I'm in the last quarter of my life. I'm not running out and hiding behind any I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So it's time for people to kind of wake up, I think, and say, you know what? Like Sam said, the AR-15, should we get rid of that one? Yeah, let's get rid of that one. But then we got to get rid of about 30 other ones that are similar to that. And they're going to fight you every step of the way. So, it'll be 50 years before we see any reasonable gun legislation like that.
I'm curious because I'm starting to change my stance on not naming the shooters. Because I think that there becomes kind of like a romanticization of these people when they are not being talked about at all. I'm wondering if that was a overcorrection on our parts.
I think so. I think it's an overcorrection because we should talk about who they are, what they did. This guy right here kidnapped his own mother.
It could have been prevented for sure.
Yes, could have been stopped. This could have been stopped years ago. I was in a grocery store. I was telling one of your producers. I was in a grocery store in Miami, and Miami doesn't have an open carry law yet. You can have a concealed carry, but you can't strap a gun on your waist and go walk into the store. I'm in the back of a grocery store, and I look to the right, and there's a guy who must have been a security guy somewhere, had a gun strapped on. And I literally took my hands off my car, walked out. Every single episode of the show has respected the living rooms we've been invited into. And I can't say thank you enough to you for making me a part of your family for the last 17 years.
His final episode, I watched that final episode. So that was, yes, Montel Williams' goodbye to daytime back in 2008. And that speech ended a 17-year run with more than 4,000 episodes. We were lucky enough to have the daytime legend on our panel today. So Montel, how did your life change after that day?
For a little while, I started thinking, I'm happy because what was going on, we did so many really serious topics. I think when people look back, they try to, make a joke and say, well, you did this, that, the other. No, I think if you remember, our show is the reason why automobiles have a latch in the trunk, a release latch. Because back then, kidnappings were taking place. And we actually, our show is one of the reasons why, I don't know if you know this, but you could take a analog phone and you could tap out on the phone 911 because we had a woman who actually had been abducted, was in a place that got removed the handset, so she had the only way, and there was no dial, so she had to tap out 911 to get help. So we did a lot of serious topics, so many so that I started wearing them when I was going home. You know what I mean? And so I just had to stop for a minute, take a break, get my brain back together. But then as soon as I did that, I realized that, there was so much more that I needed to do and so many more things that I wanted to do. So I started giving back in other ways.
That just really touched, I'm sure, all of us, the idea that you started wearing it because it's very difficult, and that's a conversation that people don't really have, that when you're constantly inundated with so many traumatic stories and we're empathetic people, it's hard to shake that?
You know, our show started something that a lot of people take for granted. We started something called an aftercare program. I was the only show in the history of television that had a staff psychiatrist that sent people not to 3 minutes in a green room after the show was over. We sent people to full residential treatment centers.
Thank you.
I had a woman on a show who was abused enough that the husband had busted her lip. We sent her out for plastic surgery so that she could wake up in the morning and not have to see the reminder of the damage that she had lived through. So, I mean, some of these stories where you can't dig into a person's life, have them share their internal, most heart-wrenching things that go on with them and not take that home. Yeah. And so for me, I started taking it home a little bit too much.
Yeah. Well, you served in the military for over 20 years, and we thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
So how did you go from Marine and Navy to daytime talk show?
Well, you know, it's very interesting. This city had a lot to do with it. And the reason why is because I came out here. I used to do a presentation around the country in high schools. I spoke to about 1,500 high schools across the country from 1988 to 1991. And I had a moniker that I used to say was, "Mountain, get out of my way." And I was telling kids that no matter where you came from, you know, if you studied hard, stayed in school, you could overcome any obstacle that was in your way. I spoke around the country. It was about to 1.5 million people. That itself, I ended up doing an open for the motion picture Glory. If you remember, Glory came out in 1990, and I did an open for that because I helped get Glory as part of the national high school curriculum. So it's in every school across the country.
Wow.
A producer in California saw me on the front of his tape. It was Freddie Fields, he's passed away. Freddie Fields produced Glory. He saw me on that and literally called my office and said, "Hey, pal, what are you doing on my movie? I want to know, who are you anyway? Come out here, let's talk." I went out to LA. Watch this, I met with him Christmas Eve 1990. By January 1991, I was in conversations with syndicators across the country.
Wow.
By April, I signed a contract. May 5th, I went on the air, and it was my first show. And it was really kind of crazy because I had just won an Emmy out here in Denver for a show that I did for KCNC called The Fourth R, Kids Rap About Racism. And I was like, in every city that I would go into and I'd speak at, I was like a subject of local news. So local news would bring me on, and I would do a presentation with the kids during the day, and then have their parents show up at school in the evening. I'm hoping that maybe somebody starts doing that again, because that kind of starts bridging the generational gap and making people understand what's going on in their children's lives.
Yeah, and listen, you have a show, we're going to talk about it, I hope at some point, but you do have a show called Military Makeover. It's going to be airing on Lifetime. We want to learn all about that, but we'll be right back.
Baby comes with a steep learning curve, and nobody hands you a how-to manual. But there's a lot of advice being doled out on social media. Multiple posts on Twitter recently went viral, claiming that giving water to babies before they're 6 months old is potentially dangerous. But is that true? Let's verify. Our sources are the American Academy of Pediatrics, Children's Health of Orange County, and Dr. Jasmine Pendergrass, Pediatric Chief Resident at Baylor College of Medicine, Texas Children's Hospital. Babies under 6 months old should only drink breast milk or formula, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics and Children's Health of Orange County. All of the hydration and nutrients babies under 6 months need are in those two liquids, according to Pediatric Chief Resident Dr. Jasmine Pendergrass.
Breast milk is made of mostly water. We are talking upwards of 80 to 90%, which is why you don't need to add water when breastfeeding. As for formula, there are specific instructions for how much water to add so that your baby gets the correct amount of fluid that they need.
Dr. Pendergrass says too much water can lead to a condition called water intoxication.
Water intoxication is when you have too much water diluting out your sodium levels, which can actually cause an array of dangerous side effects, including seizures, comas, brain damage, and even death. So we encourage caregivers to read the instructions carefully and understand that they are there for a reason to keep babies safe.
So we can verify, yes, it's unsafe for babies to drink water before they're 6 months old. Babies between 6 months and 1 year can have at most 4 to 8 ounces of water per day. The rest of their liquid intake should still come from breast milk or formula. If you have any concerns about your baby's hydration or readiness for water, you should talk to your pediatrician or healthcare provider. With your Verify, I'm Ariande Till.
Welcome back. There's often shame, guilt, and ignorance surrounding the issues of mental health. And earlier we spoke to Laura Dern about her new movie, The Son, that looks to open a conversation about the mental health crisis. Take a look.
Laura Dern, welcome back to DBL.
Yes.
So excited to hear from you.
Back. Before we get to talk about your new film, which looks really emotional, we'll leave it at that. My favorite time of year, Thanksgiving, is just around the corner. So I need to know, what does Thanksgiving look like in Laura Dern's house?
Everybody's together.
Aww.
That's what it should be.
Divorced parents, step parents,
future divorced parents.
Kids. It is a true progressive American family.
Heck
and
yeah.
I love it.
I love that.
You get everything.
That's what it's about. So let's talk about The Son. In an interview, you said you cried reading the script. So what moves you to tears?
I thought he was gonna.
What?
He scares me, okay?
In this case, as you all well know, and as we've learned from the numbers during this pandemic, the other horrifically heartbreaking epidemic is around not only mental health in general, but teen and young adult mental health. So what moved me to tears is that the amazing Florian Zeller, our writer-director, along with Christopher Hampton, who adapted Florian's play, they gave a script that captures not only the heartbreak and the shame, tragically, that is filled with a mental health crisis, and how we can move through shame into being truthful about what all of us have been going through in our families and in our lives, but also in the case of myself and Hugh Jackman as the parents to this boy, the powerlessness. One of the lines in the script from a doctor to us as parents is, sometimes love is not enough.
Wow.
And it sums up what really broke my heart open reading this script, and how grateful I am to be part of this massively important story.
I was just going to say, Tori, before we continue, one line that really got me was just like when you said, I feel like a failure. And, you know, as a parent, and I think as a parent of 3, that's your worst nightmare, is feeling like you failed your kids and you did your best. And it's something that every parent walks around with, and we never say it. We smile and say the kids are great, but it's a great fear. And I appreciate you and that script getting that sentiment out there, because I think a lot of us carry that every day.
Thank you. Amen.
Yeah. And on that same track, what do you hope people take away from this film?
Well, I know for our writer-director, he keeps saying, I want this conversation to be everywhere. We're all having it at our dinner tables. We're all having it in our families. People have talked about unparalleled levels of anxiety for these last couple of years, particularly. We have to have a collective conversation for a child to feel shame because they are having anxiety or depression and feel they can't talk about it, or they're the only one who's ever experienced it. That's on us as a culture.
Yeah, and
we must have a paradigm shift.
What's funny, Laura, is why we love you so much is this show in particular, which is rare in daytime, has been particularly deliberate about talking about mental health. I've been very open about clinical depression, my own anxiety and panic attacks, because the conversation needs to be normalized, just like you're saying. No one's discussing it, then we're not going to move forward. So I just want to say thank you for our audience and for our hosts here who have been open to have a representation of what a lot of people are going through and no one's talking about. Hugely important.
Back to you for in your own authenticity and honesty with your audience, but also giving a platform for the conversation.
And I just want to say, I think you pick well. I love what you pick, from all the way from being Ellen's girlfriend. I've always thought of you so highly, from that to this to Jurassic, whatever. I always go to see you because you pick beautiful scripts, and I'm so thankful you are here on DBL. Laura, it was so good speaking with you. To our viewers, The Son is out in New York and LA beginning November 25th, and theaters nationwide on December 16th. We'll be right back. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Lots of love.
Promotional consideration is brought to you by
In all 50 states, emergency contraceptives are legal and available at drugstores. Doctors say when it comes to emergency contraceptives, there are some misconceptions people have. So we're verifying some of those common questions. Our source is Dr. Margot Harrison, an OBGYN in the Cleveland Clinic. The first question, does the morning after pill kill a pregnancy?
No impact on a viable pregnancy.
Dr. Harrison says that's because if a woman has already ovulated, it's not going to stop the egg and the sperm from meeting and fertilizing.
So it's really trying to work at, closing the gate of the ovary, keeping the sperm outside. But if the egg gets out, it's no longer effective.
So we can verify that no, the morning after pill will not kill a viable pregnancy. The next question, will taking emergency contraceptives affect your fertility long term? According to the Cleveland Clinic, they won't.
It's just jolting the body with a message, don't let the egg out right now. So no impact on any long-term hormonal makeup that would impact your future fertility.
So we can verify that no, emergency contraceptives will not impact your fertility long term. However, both the Cleveland Clinic and Dr. Harrison say this should not be used as a form of birth control, only for emergencies. And finally, can your weight reduce the effectiveness of the morning after pill? Both the Cleveland Clinic and Dr. Harrison say people with a higher body mass may not experience the same level of effectiveness when using emergency contraceptives. However, Dr. Harrison says people should only take one pill regardless of how much they weigh.
So they actually did a trial where they gave double the dose, and it was no more effective.
So we can verify that, yes, your weight can impact the effectiveness of the morning after pill. With your Verified, I'm Megan Bragg. General rule here, if it can spill, spread, spray, pump, or pour, and it's larger than 3.4 ounces, check it. So let's go through some popular items and give them a yes or no. We went straight to the source and got all of our information from the Transportation Security Administration, also known as TSA. Let's start with the appetizers. Fresh vegetables are allowed, but wine, champagne, sparkling apple cider, you will need to check. What about those side dishes? Casseroles are okay to bring through TSA, like mac and cheese, green bean casserole, and stuffing. You are also allowed to keep them cold with an ice pack. However, the ice pack needs to be frozen while going through TSA. Now for the main event, turkey. You are allowed to carry turkey on the plane if it is frozen, cooked, or uncooked, but you have to check the gravy and cranberry sauce. Now it's time for dessert. Candy, baked goods like pumpkin pie, cakes, and fresh fruit, all good to go through TSA. However, preserved jams and jellies and maple syrup, those need to be checked in a bag. So if you go through TSA, you have to take these items out of your bag first.
All right, Montel, we got to talk about your new show on Lifetime. Tell us everything.
It's an incredible show. It was on for quite a while before I got involved. It's called Military Makeover. What we do is we pick deserving veterans and we literally make their homes over from the ground up, giving them a forever home rather than a house. And, we're living at a time right now where thank you for your service has just become a lip saying.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is, we're this close to having to possibly put people back on the ground somewhere in harm's way. So we got to do as much as we can for those who protect us.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
DBL Nation, check out Military Makeover, airing now on Lifetime. We'll be right back.
It's something of a tradition in American politics, the concession speech. When the votes are in and a candidate knows they're going to lose, they take the stage one last time to thank supporters, congratulate their opponent, and reiterate the values they ran on. But when they concede, is that actually a wrap on the election? Our viewer Earl asked, when someone concedes a race, will we still get a final vote count? And can the person who concedes still win? So Earl, let's verify. Our sources, state election laws, and John Weil, a political scientist at Middle Tennessee State. State elections law requires that every vote gets counted. Even though we usually have projected winners well beforehand, the numbers reported on and around Election Day are unofficial. They don't become official until state and county officials go through a lengthy certification checklist where they make sure no ballots were missed and no errors were made. Nothing stops that process, including concession speeches.
It's not required by law. It doesn't affect the outcome an iota.
Concessions aren't merely a sort of optional formality. They're not legally binding.
It's sort of like, the custom of shaking hands with somebody. No law requires it, but it sort of eases social, political discourse and good feelings.
And there are instances of candidates unconceding in the past. Most famously, Al Gore, who conceded on Election Day, took it back when the results in Florida got tighter, and then reconceded after the Supreme Court ruled in favor of George W. Bush. A similar series of events happened in the 2018 governor's race in Florida, with Democrat Andrew Gillum conceding, unconceding, and conceding again to Republican Ron DeSantis. But we couldn't find any instances of candidates conceding, unconceding, and then ultimately winning their race. But nothing in the law would prevent that from happening in theory. So we can verify, yes, when a candidate concedes, we still get a final vote count, and that candidate could theoretically still win their race. With your Verify.
This is Daily Blast Live. We're talking about what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh.
Get real.
No.
Y'all, just stop.
This is a sham.
It's finally here. Drum roll. Oh, I love Pink. Welcome to DBL. That was Pink singing a tribute to Olivia Newton-John at the American Music Awards last night. We'll have more on that in a bit, but first, today, we have a very special guest on our panel. Please welcome daytime legend, Montel Williams.
Yeah.
Okay, so Montel, we're excited to have you on the show today, and then also get your opinion on all these different stories. But I heard you whisper something to Jeff. I always have my ear open. I'm a mom. Something about Pink?
Oh,
do you know her? You met her?
I met her, but one of the best concerts I've ever been at.
Really?
Wow. She's incredible.
The whole aerial thing,
the
right?
whole aerial thing. It's how she can do that and sing and hold those notes is crazy.
Yeah, I love her.
Yeah.
I agree.
I thought you were going to say T.
You really did pick that up.
Oh, yeah, I'm a mom. I've got eyes on the back of my head, ears.
Yeah. Wow. You didn't know where to go with the ears. You just said eyes in the back of the head, and then you just go, and ears.
Ears that hear really well,
but then
like an
they
elephant.
need to follow the eyes.
Elephant ears.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. All right. On to the AMA. Welcome to the show,
Montel's uncomfortable.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Montel, we argue all the time.
That's
all
okay.
the time. The big winner last night was none other, surprise, surprise, than Taylor Swift. She cleaned up, winning 6 awards, including Favorite Country and Pop Artist and Artist of the Year for her re-recorded Red album, just one of the many albums she's put out in the last 2 years. Watch.
You, the fans, made it clear that you wanted to hear lots of music that I would make. You encouraged me. And so I found that the more music I made and the more music I put out, the happier I was.
Well, are we surprised by this? Do you think she should have addressed the fact that nobody can buy tickets to her concert?
No.
Not of that.
Yeah.
Not there. But she needs to address it now, though. You know?
Well, I think that this was actually such a vindicating moment for her, because people would have said, and people are saying, why is she getting all of these accolades? There's other people who are deserving. And I do agree, there are many artists who are deserving of a lot of praise. However, this ticket situation really put into context the power of Taylor Swift. And I'm glad that she was vindicated in that way, where people couldn't take that away from her, because the numbers just don't lie.
Well, Lionel Richie won the Icon Award. And you, okay,
I was just with Lionel about
no, you weren't.
4 weeks ago. It was really kind of crazy. He was doing a concert at
look at the picture.
Oh, that's awesome.
He was doing his concert at the Wynn, and it was so funny because, a lot of times celebrities who perform, they don't like to have other celebrities in the audience because it takes it away. So I didn't want to sit up close. I got a seat way up in the middle of the arena, which was really kind of eye level with the stage. I kid you not. Third song, he's singing.
He sees you.
And he goes, Montel, is that you? And because he knows my wife, so the lights come on, camera goes to my wife, he goes, "Oh, that's definitely you." And then for the rest of the concert, every joke that he had to make was, I was in it. You know what I mean?
Hilarious.
So then he sends his manager back to go and take us backstage after the show.
Wow. How long have you known him?
I'm trying to remember now. I think it's at least 13 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
I think that he's like he's not human. It's like I love him. He's so personable.
His voice is perfect.
Yes.
To the T, and it's very funny. I saw him the first time when I entered the military back in 1975. I was in Newport, Rhode Island, and I actually talked to him about it because I was at a concert with him with a group back then. It was called the Tower of Power. The Commodores opened for the Tower of Power. They weren't the main act. And during the concert, one of the members of the Tower of Power fell off the stage and broke his ankle. And so Lionel and I remember, because that ended the tour that he was going to have. He said, that almost messed up my whole career. Yeah, that's funny.
Wow.
And I reached out to him this morning to congratulate him, and I got a note back, so hopefully I'm going to get a chance to see him and his significant other in about 2 weeks when I go out for the LA Christmas parade.
How cool is that?
I do want to say this, Montel. I do think that he probably recognized you, and we're all thinking, let's be honest, because you look exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's hard to do the show because I'm like, brother,
I know.
Unbelievable. You look great. It's just it's an honor. But
I keep get reminded that I am getting older. My oldest daughter just had my first grandchild.
Congratulations.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay, we're gonna get to that.
Phenomenal. I'm not grandpa.
Yeah.
Pop.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Pop. Yes, please.
Pop just called Lionel Richie.
Okay, there are some. Sorry, I saw my cough. Stop looking at me like that.
You're the lead host.
Whoa.
Get you to lead us.
I was making sure you were okay, and I didn't have to spring into action.
See.
Eyes, ears.
I was the one next to it.
Okay, there were some controversial winners though. Okay, at the AMAs as well. So we got to talk about it. Morgan Wallen won 2 awards: favorite male country artist and country song. He wasn't at the show, but thanked fans later in a video. And Chris Brown won favorite male R&B artist. Chris also wasn't there, but presenter Kelly Rowland had to shut down some people in the crowd who booed. Watch.
Now, Chris Brown is not here tonight, so I'm accepting this award on his behalf. Excuse me, chill out. But I want to tell Chris, thank you so much for making great R&B music. And I want to tell him, thank you for being an incredible performer. I'll take this award, bring it to you. I love you. Congratulations.
Do you think that Chris Brown, after all this time, should be forgiven? Should he have not won that award?
I think it would be a fool's errand for us to try and go by individually and figure out what somebody needs to do to get back in the social graces. I think we need to have a much more difficult conversation, because if you are a Chris Brown fan, you'll figure out a way to get Chris Brown back in your life and make excuses, and he's been pretty straight and narrow since then. If you're a Morgan Wallen fan, you're going to do the same thing. If you're a Michael Jackson fan, you're going to do the same thing. All of these people are us. They are human beings. We are incredibly beautiful and incredibly flawed at the same time. So I keep telling myself, you have to make space for somebody to have the worst day of their life. Now, if it is a pattern, that's another thing. But if it does seem like the person is somewhat contrite, I have to hope that there's something in me that will allow a path of access to them back into the mainstream. Because if you keep people marginalized because of something they did, they're going to stay there and they're going to fester.
Can you not separate the talent from the person? Remember, Van Gogh cut his ears off. You know, and people are spending hundreds of millions of dollars for his paintings these days. The list that you went through, Michael Jackson, others. I hear a Michael Jackson song come on right now. The first thing that comes to my mind isn't the controversy. It's the fact that I appreciated that music and I remember where I was when that music played. Chris Brown, do we have to now stretch this out for the rest of his life? I think we got to reset our values right now a little bit.
Well, I'm with both of you guys.
I think it's important also to acknowledge the reason why Chris Brown wasn't there, because the 40th anniversary tribute for Michael Jackson's Thriller was supposed to be his moment that night, and they pulled that after putting that he was slated to be on the show. So I think that even the fact that he was booed, and Kelly Rowland, can she have a soft girl season? Like, she's constantly having to defend herself, to defend other people. Like, child, like, her back must be hurting. She's carrying the weight of the world. And the way that she handled that, especially, that must have been such an awkward position for her to be in, to have to defend this. But at the same time, I think a greater conversation that a lot of people are having in different cultures is this the attack on the legacy of Black music and Black artists? So that was the conversation that was happening before the AMA started. Then this happens and contributes to another conversation. But at the end of the day, Kelly, take a break, sis. I hope you get some time to R&R. I hope you do. I'm praying for you always.
She does deserve that. Elton John, by the way, played his final U.S. show for his Yellow Brick Road farewell tour.
He plays what? Isn't this the third final?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
This is the final.
He's right. Elton played Dodger Stadium over the weekend in L.A. He played all the hits and brought up some guests like Dua Lipa and Brandi Carlile. Now, Elton goes on to play the rest of the tour in Australia, New Zealand. But to Montel's point, will this be his last tour?
I think there's going to be another final tour. Yeah. And as long as ching ching, ching ching, ching ching, I think you'll see a final tour until he decides, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
To cash out.
He doesn't know any other way, right? He's been doing this his whole life. And I feel like if you walk away from that, even though it's nice to walk out in the spotlight, you're going to be like at home, like, I could still play. It's still there. I still want to do it. So I don't think this will be his last tour either.
But stop saying it then.
But then you get, that whole thing like, we got to go. It's his last tour.
And the ticket prices do go
up
they do.
for last tour.
Yeah. Okay. Ka-ching, ka-ching.
Ka-ching, ka-ching.
You mentioned being a grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that.
Papa.
Pop. Is it papa or pop?
Pop.
Oh.
He is a Gerber baby. I'm telling you.
Wow. For real.
Such a sweet. He's got blue eyes, which is really crazy.
Dude, he's so.
My daughter's biracial. Her husband is Puerto Rican, and the two of them, he's got green eyes, and those eyes are as bright blue as they can be. But as soon as he gets a little upset, and he doesn't cry, but you can know when his mood's changing because they go from blue to green. He's such a sweet guy.
That's interesting. Like enchanted eyes.
And he's such a nice little man. You know what I mean? You can tell.
How has he changed you?
It made me realize that I'm getting older. But no, he's changed me in the sense that, I finally feel like, that whole legacy thing in a way. My daughter decided to keep her last name, and it's combined, and that's the only grandchild that I have, and so he may be the only one moving the Williams name forward in the future.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay, so coming up on DBL, we're going to get to know Montel even better. He's going to share what it's like living with MS. That's coming up next.
Closed captioning provided by...
This is Daily Blast Live. We have fiery debate. That's not true. Can I finish? We tell heartfelt stories. We're so emotional over here. We talk to the stars.
Turn up the notch on that. Great research.
DBL is all new every day.
When I met him,
Lionel Richie story.
Oh, so yeah, I'm talking about Lionel Richie. So I got an opportunity to interview him when I was doing mornings in Chicago radio. He was on our show for an hour and a half with Chucky Booker, and they performed live. He sat me down for 15 minutes and had this whole conversation about like the future of my career. When I interviewed him in Denver, he was like, just stop by before the show. And he literally brought me and my boyfriend at the time backstage to like have a conversation before the show at Red Rocks.
He's that kind of guy. He met my mother-in-law and literally knows her by name. And was asking my wife, well, how's Linda doing? Is she okay? Well, tell Linda I'm still waiting on, I don't know what Linda may have problems with cake or something. I'm still waiting on my cake and I didn't get it yet. He's like, oh, are you kidding me? But for him to remember that, all the people that he meets, it's crazy. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan as well. I think everybody is, but I watch American Idol specifically because of him. How awesome he is with those people. Like he goes and calms them down. It's like the most nerve-wracking moment of their lives, right? And he's this huge star, and he like goes in there and calms him down, and then I talk to Eric, he's like, that's just who he is.
That's the real him.
Yeah.
No question. Yeah. He's such a nice man.
Wow.
Hopefully I'm going to it'll be next Friday or Saturday, I'm going to have lunch or dinner with him. Yeah.
Wow. Crazy. But he might be just as enamored with you.
Well, but it's this weird thing about the fact that, he will take time out of his busy schedule I'm has-been in a sense. But go ahead and have lunch with him.
No, you're a legend. You're a legend.
Like,
has
what?
been. Yeah, is Jim Brown a has-been? No, it's like, no, it's that you're synonymous. I was going to ask you, oh, we're on camera. Because I lived in Miami for 10 years. I don't know what part of the city you're in. Because I lived in Miami for years.
Yep, go ahead. Drilling, hammering, going on.
They're still chatting away.
Yeah.
That's good.
We're soaking up Montel, even at the commercial break.
Welcome back to DBL. Health is wealth, right? We've all heard this, but this man right here is living proof. Montel, you were diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, commonly known as MS, in 1999. We've actually used you as an example on our show of someone thriving with the disease, but MS has the highest rate of depression amongst all neurological diseases. How are you today?
Well, I got to tell you something. I went through that bout. I went through a really tough time when I first got diagnosed. I went to see a doctor who had the audacity to tell me that I was going to be in a wheelchair in 10 years. Yeah. And I was like, you don't know me. How can you crystal ball? If you were God, nobody would be sick. So doctors aren't God. However, I paid attention to the fact that, I said to myself, if I'm going to have this disease, I'm going to know everything I can learn about it. So I jumped in. 2 feet. I went to the library because that was before there was internet, and I started studying everything I could study about the illness. And I realized that very quickly that one of the greatest nemesises of MS is inflammation. So I sought about doing everything that I could do to reduce the inflammation in my body. I started working on new breakthrough experimental protocols that have done me well. I know that you guys have talked about Selma on the show, and also Christina.
And Christina Applegate?
I've talked to both of them.
Really?
I actually went over to Selma's house, and we spent some time together. I literally worked on a medical device. It's called a PONS device that literally just got FDA approval for MS, mild to moderate gait and balance. I know this will be something that could help them, so I'm so glad that you guys have an opportunity to even talk about it here, because there's a lot of other people out there that are suffering. They don't know about the fact that this device is now available here in the United States. I use it every single day, and it is part of the reason why I think I've had the balance and gait that I have. But, MS is one of those illnesses that doctors didn't know as much as they need to know about it, so they would give these prognoses that were like so dire. I don't want to get busy dying. I want to get busy living. And so what I've done since my diagnosis is everything I can do to not just help myself, but to share it with others and help them. So I work on things like, I'm working on a protocol right now that is one of the only cures for PTSD in the world. It's called RTM. It's so powerful that the country of Ukraine and Poland, we've now trained 40 clinicians there. They're begging us to train another 150, because this is a bona fide by the governing body that approves all psychological protocols, one of the only cures for PTSD in existence today. It's called RTM, reconsolidation of traumatic memories. This works. 9 out of 10 people who do it, guess what? Completely remit all their symptoms of PTSD in 5 to 10 hours. No medication.
What? That could get rid of addiction and shame.
But what's happened is we live in a country where they look at illness as a opportunity to make more money. And this is something that's going to cause a little difficulty in the industry. So I think, rather than being a cottage industry where you're making a lot of cash, this is something that could start helping us. And remember, since COVID, almost 60% of the people who spent more than 2 days in the hospital for COVID are suffering from some form of PTSD. Right. 30 to 40% of all of our first responders are suffering from PTSD. This is going to be our biggest nightmare in the next 10 years, and the cure is here now.
That's so angering to me.
Oh, I am so angry about it.
Military. Speaking of,
correct.
I know.
The number of soldiers that we could help. Do you know that we talked about it before COVID, and we saw all of a sudden stop. 24 to 26 veterans a day take their lives.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're making me emotional.
Sorry.
No, thank you for
These are who've done the most for us. They're the least of us that have done the most for us. And how dare we not give them access to a cure if it's available today? Yeah. I'm taking this to Washington, D.C. I'm taking this all over the country. I'm trying to scream it the loudest. The cure is there. 9 out of every 10 people who have been through this protocol remit all of their symptoms. No drugs. 5 to 10 hours.
Thank you.
Why can't we do this? Yeah. Why? Because insurance companies and people are making about $150,000 a year off of people suffering. Yeah. Stop.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
passion.
You know, we have to talk about the day-to-day struggle that a lot of Americans deal with, Montel, and I feel like you, more than anybody, can speak to that because you must have left your show figuring out, who am I now? You leave the military, who is Montel Williams now? Yep. You're diagnosed with MS, who are you now? So how did you get from the military to here, taking care of yourself mentally with your mental health day-to-day?
I've had one thing that stuck in my craw since I was in the 5th grade. I alone will be the person who owns a definition of who I am. I dare anybody else to try to define me. I have MS, so what? I have MS. MS doesn't have me. I will do everything I can do to see if I can battle this illness and live as strong as I can rather than live down to somebody else's expectations, no matter what it is. And anybody else out there that's suffering from an illness, I would suggest to them, you are your biggest advocate. You need to study. Stop the silly thinking it's just going to come through osmosis. Go read into your illness. Find out what it is. Find out what is happening with maybe those 1 or 2 people who seem to have miraculously been cured. It's not a miraculous thing. It's not an N of 1. There's a reason why those people are surviving. There's a reason why I am. So copy me. If it works for you, I hope it does. MS isn't one size fits all. But some of the things that I've learned, I think I can share.
Thank you.
I mean, fantastic. Montel, if you're ever looking to come back to TV, that seat's yours, my friend.
Yes. Thank you.
I love you guys.
The passion.
We'll be right back.
I love it, man.
No,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow.
Bringing home a baby comes with a steep learning curve, and nobody hands you a how-to manual. But there's a lot of advice being doled out on social media. Multiple posts on Twitter recently went viral, claiming that giving water to babies before they're 6 months old is potentially dangerous. But is that true? Let's verify. Our sources are the American Academy of Pediatrics, Children's Health of Orange County, and Dr. Jasmine Pendergrass, pediatric chief resident at Baylor College of Medicine, Texas Children's Hospital. Babies under 6 months old should only drink breast milk or formula, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics and Children's Health of Orange County. All of the hydration and nutrients babies under 6 months need are in those 2 liquids, according to pediatric chief resident Dr. Jasmine Pendergrass.
Breast milk is made of mostly water. We are talking upwards of 80 to 90%, which is why you don't need to add water when breastfeeding. As for formula, there are specific instructions for how much water to add so that your baby gets the correct amount of fluid that they need.
Dr. Pendergrass says too much water can lead to a condition called water intoxication.
Water intoxication is when you have too much water diluting out your sodium levels, which can actually cause an array of dangerous side effects, including seizures, comas, brain damage, and even death. So we encourage caregivers to read the instructions carefully and understand that they are there for a reason to keep babies safe.
So we can verify, yes, it's unsafe for babies to drink water before they're 6 months old. Babies between 6 months and 1 year can have at most 4 to 8 ounces of water per day. The rest of their liquid intake should still come from breast milk or formula. If you have any concerns about your baby's hydration or readiness for water, you should talk to your pediatrician or healthcare provider. With your Verify, I'm Ariane Till.
Welcome back. If you find yourself sitting all day, listen up. Daily stretches can help your overall health. It's time for some joint and muscle support brought to you by Omega XL. First, stretching improves circulation and allows your body to receive more oxygen. Next, stretching can help with your posture by reducing muscle tightness. And get this, stretching can relieve stress by actually activating new parts of the nervous system to help you feel calm. Omega XL has improved the lives of millions of consumers, supported by 30 years of clinical research. Omega XL's powerful and proven benefits have transformed the lives of athletes, celebrities, and dedicated daily users. So call 1-800-686-5325 or visit omegaxl.com for more information. We'll be right back.
Promotional consideration is brought to you by
In all 50 states, emergency contraceptives are legal and available at drugstores. Doctors say when it comes to emergency contraceptives, there are some misconceptions people have. So we're verifying some of those common questions. Our source is Dr. Margot Harrison, an OBGYN in the Cleveland Clinic. The first question, does the morning after pill kill a pregnancy?
No impact on a viable pregnancy.
Dr. Harrison says that's because if a woman has already ovulated, it's not going to stop the egg and the sperm from meeting and fertilizing.
So it's really trying to work at, closing the gate of the ovary, keeping the sperm outside. But if the egg gets out, it's no longer effective.
So we can verify that no, the morning after pill will not kill a viable pregnancy. The next question, will taking emergency contraceptives affect your fertility long term? According to the Cleveland Clinic, they won't.
It's just jolting the body with a message, don't let the egg out right now. So no impact on any long-term hormonal makeup that would impact your future fertility.
So we can verify that no, emergency contraceptives will not impact your fertility long term. However, both the Cleveland Clinic and Dr. Harrison say this should not be used as a form of birth control, only for emergencies. And finally, can your weight reduce the effectiveness of the morning after pill? Both the Cleveland Clinic and Dr. Harrison say people with a higher body mass may not experience the same level of effectiveness when using emergency contraceptives. However, Dr. Harrison says people should only take one pill regardless of how much they weigh.
So they actually did a trial where they gave double the dose, and it was no more effective.
So we can verify that, yes, your weight can impact the effectiveness of the morning after pill. With your Verified, I'm Megan Bragg. General rule here, if it can spill, spread, spray, pump, or pour, and it's larger than 3.4 ounces, check it. So let's go through some popular items and give them a yes or no. We went straight to the source and got all of our information from the Transportation Security Administration, also known as TSA. Let's start with the appetizers. Fresh vegetables are allowed, but wine, champagne, sparkling apple cider, you will need to check. What about those side dishes? Casseroles are okay to bring through TSA, like mac and cheese, green bean casserole, and stuffing. You are also allowed to keep them cold with an ice pack. However, the ice pack needs to be frozen while going through TSA. Now for the main event, turkey. You are allowed to carry turkey on the plane if it is frozen, cooked, or uncooked, but you have to check the gravy and cranberry sauce. Now it's time for dessert. Candy, baked goods like pumpkin pie, cakes, and fresh fruit, all good to go through TSA. However, preserved jams and jellies and maple syrup, those need to be checked in a bag. So if you go through TSA, you have to take these items out of your bag first.
Tomorrow on DBL, ventriloquist and stand-up comedian Jeff Dunham will be here live. Plus, Chef Dernard is back to help us prepare a delicious Thanksgiving dish.
Pop the lid on, and it's time to go to the oven.
That's tomorrow only on DBL.
And so he's changed a lot.
We want to remind you to watch Montel on Military Makeover, airing on Lifetime. Also, don't miss Montel's new podcast, Let's Be Blunt. It provides education and information on the cannabis industry. You can also listen to his weekly podcast, Free Thinking with Montel. What a special day to be with you
Thank you so much. It was a special day to be with you all. Thank you.
I mean, Montel, you walked the walk. I want to tell you, you walked the walk. You're a great guy. We talked. I mean, you're fantastic, man. You're really an inspiration, for real. It's infectious.
It is.
It really is. I just heard you talking to Erica off camera, and the only thing that you said today that I took exception with, you refer to yourself as a has-been, and sir,
what?
I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for you, and you need to know the impact that you have made on all of us, on all these millions of Americans. We love you.
Wow, what a special show.